Stitchless TV, I want to talk to you about experimenting with your projects. We're going to experiment with a pattern. I got this pattern from By Hand London, who are a London-based independent pattern company. And I'm going to show you how you can take a regular dress pattern and turn it into a coat. And we're also going to experiment with taking a thin fabric and bonding it to a thicker fabric just to give it a little bit more body. For the experiment today, I'm using this gorgeous thin fabric that my sister Shaz got from India. Thanks, Shaz. And I'm going to use this old bit of curtain fabric that I had left over from a curtain job. So to make the material stiff, this material stiff, I need to find a way to basically glue it to this material, but it's going to have to be all over it. Now the way in which we do that, we can do it in several ways, but the way that I do it, I either use Bonder web, which you can buy by the metre, and it's like this. It can work out quite expensive though. Or you can use this amazing stuff that I've just bought from Sewing Online. They're an online company, and it's called 606 Permanent Fusible Adhesive. And what you do, right, you do fine layers of spray all over the backing fabric, leave it to dry, and it kind of just looks like Bonder web. And then when it is dry, you get your fabric, lay it on top, and then carefully iron it, steam and iron it all into place so it becomes one fabric. I'm going to talk to you now about the pattern. Now this pattern is called Eliza Lex, and it's from By Hand London. So I'm going to show it to you. They've got gorgeous packaging. Look at this wonderful packaging. Never seen anything like it. And how it comes with a little instruction booklet and a little label. But this is what we need. We need the pattern. So I've cut it all out already. There are a couple of things that I need to point out about when you're cutting out your Eliza Lex dress and you want to make it into a coat. And these are them. When you cut out the front bodice piece, which is supposed to be to a fold, you need an inch extra there. So you're going to allow an inch extra on that front fold piece, because it's not going to go to a fold anymore, because that's going to become the opening of your coat. Also, it comes down a little bit too low, so I've added an extra 10 centimetres or 3 inches coming up, and then I've scooped the neck. Now for the back bodice, we don't have to change that much. We're keeping the fact that there's a centimetre, that there's a centre seam with a seam allowance, except the back comes down too low. I don't want it to come down that low on the coat. So I'm adding an extra 6.5 inches, which is 16 centimetres, and then I'm reshaping it around there. The last thing is, the neck is too wide for the coat. So I'm just creating a little dart there, which I'm only doing in the pattern. So you just go like that, create a little dart, which brings everything in nicely. And then the bodice part is ready for the coat. So remember, this is an experiment. So the last thing is, we're not keeping the skirt of the dress. If you come and have a look, this is how the pattern came. So it's like a great big square. So I'm not actually using the skirt of the pattern. I've created a diagonal line going down the pattern, starting from the top about 7 inches down, which is in centimetres 18 inches, and I'm going to go diagonally down, so I'm doing a mirror, so the same on either side, so I end up with this. And when I do this coat, to make it really quick, and because I fancy a bit of rough today, I've finished the edges with pinking shears to get kind of a zigzag edge. The only other thing that you're going to need is just a bit of some sort of ribbing to finish off the neck. You know how I like a bit of ribbing. And for my ribbing today, I'm using some stretchy net. So for our experiment today, oh, I feel like I'm in a lab or something. For our experiment today, the first thing that we're going to be sewing is we're going to attach our front side pieces to our centre fronts and do it on the other side as well. Okay, so you know how I always say put right sides together? Well, because we're doing a bit rough this week, we're going to put it wrong sides together, because I want to see all this kind of raw edge stuff, which over time will fray and look gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is I'm attaching my side front to my centre front, and I've got it wrong sides together, and I'm basically just going to sew all of that onto there, feeding it down like that. Now, the patterns have come out a little bit small, so I'm not going to do the seam allowance that they suggest. I'm just going to do 1/2 centimetre seam allowance, and I'm using a straight stitch, which is a D, on my mini JL machine. Backwards and forwards at the beginning, and off you go. Do you know what I'm going to say? Do the same on the other side. So this is what we've got so far. This looks really gorgeous, wow. So the next thing that we need to do is exactly the same, but to the back pieces, except this is not going to be an opening because this isn't the front, is it? So we're going to stitch up the back as well. So you can see the reason why we bond the fabrics together, because if we didn't bond them together and we tried to sew 2 fabrics together, now as I go along here, I would need thousands of pins, or all of this all hand tacked together so that the fabric doesn't move. But look, nothing's moving. I'm treating it just as one piece of fabric, and it's lovely to sew. Look, this is the back, which is made me feel really excited because it looks amazing. For my experimental coat, I've decided not to have a raw edge on the shoulder. So I'm going to sew now right sides together, okay? So it's going to get really confusing. So both shoulders, when you sew them, are right sides together. Okay, now you see, look, if we don't have raw edges for everything, I think it's a much more professional finish. So I'm just going to press that now with the iron. The next thing that we're going to do is deal with the neck, and it's always easier to do the neck when it's all open like this. But I was looking at the neck and I was thinking, oh, it needs to come down a little bit at the back, so I'm just going to cut it now, just like that. So now time to put the ribbing on. Right, I've got a length of ribbing. It's about 70 centimetres or maybe a yard of ribbing. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to decide how wide I want it to be. So I think I want it to be about 1 inch, 2 centimetres showing around the neck. So I'm just going to cut all of the ribbing to that kind of width now, allowing for a little bit for a seam allowance. We're doing a new thing with our ribbing today because we're going to have some raw edges. So I've got my ribbing, I'm feeding it off into nothing there. All right, and we're going to be top stitching there whilst we stretch this. So come and have a look at how I do that on the machine. So this is the front neck. I've got it going off there, coming off at an angle. This is all of my length of ribbing here. So I'm going to start there, put my needle right in, and remember, when we do ribbing, we really stretch the ribbing but not the actual coat. So it's starting backwards and forwards, and it's going off into nothing there and stretching the ribbing as we go. I'm sewing about 2 mils away from that pinking sheared cut edge. Look, can you see that? And in fact, any raw edge that we have on the coat that falls at the edge, we need to top stitch it that. So I'll be doing it down the front as well, actually. Right, we're just coming to the end now, so have a look. So we're coming to the end. Look, we've got all this stuff left over. So we've got all this ribbing left over, but just leave it on there. Go to the end, and then, do you know what we're going to do then? We're going to leave the needle in, lift it up, turn it around, because now we're just going to start stitching down the centre front, all right? So I'm going to do that now. The reason why we sort of top stitch down the raw edge at the front is just to definitely hold all those fabrics in place. So now I'm just going to trim back all my loose bits of ribbing. So I'm just going to trim it back there and then trim all the way round just so it looks a bit neat inside. So usually when I stretch my ribbing back into shape again, it normally goes all smooth there, but do you know what? I don't think I stretched it enough as I went round the bend. But I don't mind, it's an experimental coat, so I'm just going to do 2 little darts here, and no one will know. I'm going to put a label on my experimental coat today. Now if you want to label, do you know what you have to do? If you send me any pictures of projects that you do from any of the Stitchless TV films, then I'll send you a selection of my Stitchless labels. So look, it's really coming together now. So now we're going to do the sleeves. Now when I do the sleeves, I don't stitch up the side seams and then try and fit them in. I like to work on them on the flat, like that. So we've got our sleeve. We get the centre notch from the top, which was on the pattern. Make sure you put them the right way round. The pattern tells you which way round to do them. And then I'm going to start from the shoulder and the centre of the sleeve, and I'm going to work my way round and attach the front on, and then I'm going to attach the back. And this we're doing right sides together. So look, that's what we've got so far. So I've done it, so I started at the centre shoulder, went down, and then went down at the back. So I'm going to do the same on the other sleeve. We put both sleeves on, so now we have to close off the seams that go around there. So to do that, we are going to put it right sides together, and we're going to start in the armpit, and we're going to work down the sleeve and then down the side seam. So going down the sleeve, I'm still working to like a 1/2 centimetre seam allowance, and the fabric's right sides together, remember. So I've got it inside out, remember, because I've got it right sides together, and I've just stitched from there going all the way down, and now I need to stitch those side seams together. So I'll do that now as straight stitch. So that's what we've got, but we're not wearing it like that. We've got to turn it the right way round. Oh, wow, actually it makes a really nice little bolero. Look at that, that looks like one of those Matador jackets. So we're going to have to press it, but before I press it, I'm going to stitch up the other side. It's really, really important to press. All the time when you sew, you should press, because that's the thing that gives your garment a professional finish. So we always press. One more thing about the sleeve, because we're going to have raw edge at the cuff, we need to do that top stitching thing, just like we did here at the front. So now for the skirt bit of our experimental coat. So do you remember that piece that we had where we just went diagonally across the fabric? Now what I've done is I've folded back the long bit, which is going to fall at the back of the coat. So it's going to fall here at the back of the coat and form the split. So I've done it to both sides, but look, what you have to do is, because you fold it back, see that little overhang there? You need to get your pinking shears and trim it off, and it's done it. That was hard work. So it's going to look like this. So that one will be there like that, and then that will overlap. So it will fall a kind of tailcoat split thing at the back. But first of all, we need to go in on our fabric, and we just need to do a little 2mm top stitch going all the way around the edge and then coming up at the front. The first thing I'm going to do, so I've top stitched all my edges. I just want these 2 back pieces here to overlap, and I'm going to just stitch it, stitch it in place, because then it will be easier for me to work with it. So I'm just stitching just this little bit here in the middle to hold those 2 pieces together for the flap. So I've got the bottom half, the kind of peplum bit. I'm not going to gather it because it is quite thick, and I'm using it on the mini JL today. So I'm going to match up the centre back of the jacket with that opening. I'm going to see where the beginning is, here. And basically, I'm going to fill this space by doing little box pleats as I go along. So where I see a little seam, I'll do a little box pleat, just like that. This is what a box pleat looks like. You sort of fold a little pleat, and then you fold another little pleat to come back to it, and you end up with this sort of box pleat effect. So I've also decided with my experimental coat to do it right sides together for the waist there, just so you get like a clean waist on it. So as I'm coming to like the centre princess seam line at the front, that's a good place to have a little box pleat. So I'm going to shove one in there. So I'm folding a pleat like that, and then I'm folding another pleat to meet it like that. And they're each about an inch, I suppose. And then I'll just stitch them in. Remember, this was an experimental coat. So what I did was, rather than gathering, because the fabric was quite thick, I decided to do box pleats, which you need to press because otherwise they stick out too much. But look what happens when you experiment. Look at that. I really, really love my experimental coat. So look, this is what happens when you experiment. You get something just a little bit different. I don't know, is it quite Prada-esque? So remember what we did, I really love it. We got a dress pattern, this dress pattern from By Hand London. It was the Eliza Lex dress, and instead of using their skirt that they had at the bottom, we just cut diagonally across the paper. So we ended up with this kind of peplum piece and just did box pleats. Thanks a lot for watching Stitchless TV, and keep leaving those comments. Bye!